Susie Homesteader of the Rockies, and welcome to the Susie Homesteader channel. And today we're going to be talking about homeschooling, and we're going to talk about how to set up your homeschooling day and your schedule. I'm going to tell you a couple different ways to do this. I know everybody has their kind of their own way and their own tools and their own materials that they like to use to do this. But I can tell you, after about 1 year of trying to figure out how to make it all happen, a few things not to do. So the first mistake I made was trying to start planning my homeschool schedule from the day and then work my way up to like the year and even the seasons. That was my first mistake. I figured it out. It was way easier to start my scheduling from a larger picture, starting with the seasons and the year, and then working down to the months, and then the weeks, and then the days, and then even down to the hours. So that was a much easier breakdown process to do than trying to start from the other way in terms of starting your day and trying to figure out how the whole year was going to go. So this one is a little bit more of a process of elimination, because what you're going to do is start with the seasons. And so, for example, there's certain field trips that you just can't take in the wintertime if you live in a state that has a lot of snow. So some of your activities and some of the things that you're planning on doing sometimes have to be based around the seasons itself. So that's one way to break it down. And then when you start with the seasons, you're going to go down into what you think your year is going to be. So let me show you what I did that did not work before we start moving on down. I started to try this whole thing on a little piece of paper in terms of how their day was going to go. And then each piece of paper applied to each student or each kid. That didn't work because I had too many papers. So that was my first mistake. Then I tried to work my way back up from days into a bigger piece of paper where I had their whole week figured out per child. So then I had, say, if I had 3 kids, then I had 3 of these that I kind of had to sort through every day. And again, for some reason that just wasn't working because it was too many papers. And with schooling, you already have a ton of papers, so that's one more thing you don't want to add to. Then I tried to move on up into the months, and each child had their own monthly schedule, which, again, I don't know, it just didn't fit on this little piece of paper because now we had to get more on a smaller piece of paper. So that also didn't work. Then I tried to go into kind of like a filing system where I had every day of the week in a different file. And then all the kids, instead of being on separate pieces of paper, were all into one file. So that gave me, say, 5 days of the week, so I had 5 files. It still wasn't working out because now I had more files to go through and find those kids. So then, last but not least, I went to a notebook where I had all the kids and all the days and all the weeks and even the years into a notebook, which was not such a bad idea. I had everything in there. I had it all separated by dividers. But again, hard to find because now, you know, I have to rifle through more stuff to find those kids. So another not so great idea. Okay, and then, of course, I just bumped up to a regular size calendar, which I thought was going to be kind of the ticket. But still, not enough room to get 3 or 4 kids onto one calendar. So here we go. Here's where it all finally came together and worked, which is where I left off that I was talking about. So seasons, years, and then down to months. So buy one of these monthly desktop calendars that are great. Okay, and then I'll show you exactly how I made this work out. So you're going to need, besides this calendar, you're going to need a Sharpie for the things that you're not going to change, which are going to be your subjects that you're going to put. So for example, we have 9 subjects that we're going to put up here on the top of this calendar. So Sunday is a non-school day, Saturday is a non-school day. Monday is a miscellaneous day, meaning if I can't do some of these things that we always have scheduled for Mondays. It turns into my teacher day to catch up. Tuesdays. Now we're going from months to weeks to days of the week. Okay, so now in those days of the week, we're going to determine how many subjects we're going to do per day. So in my case, out of the 9 subjects that I chose to do, I picked 2 subjects per day. So for example, Tuesday, arts and crafts and social studies. And those kind of coincide a little bit. Just like math and science kind of work well together. Health and PE, Thursday. Grammar and music on Friday. And sometimes it wasn't music. But so what we've done is taken the month and broken that month down into weeks. And then with those weeks, we've broken it down to the day as to what we're going to do that day or how many subjects we're going to do per day. And then the last thing you're going to use is your pencil. And do not write down any of the things you're going to do per day in anything but a pencil, because that does change every day. And it changes week to week. So the only thing that you may decide to make permanent is the actual subjects you're going to do each week. And then, again, you're going to break that down to what you're going to do each day of that week. So some of the things that I was able to write in a pen, and this is important, were the things that I knew were not going to change. And that was that miscellaneous Monday is what I called it, because sometimes the first Monday of the month we'd do current affairs. Sometimes the second Monday of the month it would be cooking. Sometimes the third Monday of the month it would be a guest speaker, and sometimes the fourth Monday of the month it was presentations. So those things never changed. It was just a question of whether they actually happened or not. So you're going to go back to your pencil. Again, do not write anything else out in anything but pencil, because you're going to be doing a lot of erasing, trust me. And then you can always just use some of the side parts of this calendar for little extra notes, like maybe a field trip that you're actually have planned for that month, or maybe something else you're going to actually focus on just for that month. So within this month, now that you've gone back and tried to kind of figure out how you're going to plan your year, I planned mine based on the same as the public school system. And the reason for that is because I didn't want my kids to not be able to see their friends over the summer that were also on that schedule. So I did keep it the same, which means 10 months out of the year was school, and they had 2.5 months off in the summer. So that was how my year was planned. So that's 10 months at school, 2 or more off for the summers. And then on the months of the year, a lot of those months in my schedules were determined by things that came up only in that month. So, you know, if you go back to your calendars, your yearly calendars, depending on where you live, there's all kinds of things that are going to go on in September, and particularly like October, you know, such as Halloween and stuff like that. That might change how your schedule is going to go. So monthly, a lot of things were determined based on holidays and events and other things that come up only in those months of the year. So that will change your schedule too. And then beyond the month of each year, within that week, you're going to determine how many days of the week that you're actually going to homeschool. I chose to do it 5 days a week, with, again, Mondays being optional for me, or maybe just some other things that may or may not happen. And the other 4 days of the week, never really changing too much, and always a school day or homeschool day. So there's your week that you've kind of determined on how many days you're going to actually homeschool. And then within that week, you're going to determine how many hours per day you're actually going to want to homeschool. Now in my case, I chose 4 hours a day, and again, that was because I chose 2 subjects per day, as opposed to all the subjects a little bit all day. So, you know, for example, we did 2 hours of arts and crafts, took, say, like an hour lunch break, and I'd do 2 hours of social studies on Tuesdays. And then that would just go right on down the line. Now, the only problem with that is that if you have younger kids that have very short attention spans, 2 hours on any subject really doesn't work, especially with little kids, unless your kids have an unusual long attention span, which mine do not. So you will sometimes have to break even those 2 hours into all kinds of little mini subjects just to get through focusing on one. So sometimes 2 hours of a subject, that's even long for any kid, but there are kind of ways to kind of change that up a little bit within that 2 hours. So my day, for example, on an hourly basis would start maybe at 10 o'clock. We do 2 hours of one subject until noon, take a lunch break, and then another 2 hours of the second subject, and that would end our day right around 3 o'clock. So my day was about 10 to 3 every day, and that may or may not work for you. But that is how I broke it down into the days, and then of course down into the hour and actual hours that you're going to teach. So as I said, don't try breaking it down the other direction, or trying to determine it from the other direction where you're trying to figure out your day and then your year. For me, it seemed to work much better from starting with the big picture and working your way down to how many actual hours you are going to homeschool and what those exact hours are. So another tip is don't vary from those hours from day to day, because before you know it, it's like 7 o'clock at night and you're still homeschooling. So really important to kind of stick to your schedule. Try not to vary from that too much. I know field trips and other kind of unusual days will take longer anyway, but it's really super important to stick to that every day. So obviously time management being one of the most important tools ever to learn yourself, and then of course pass on down to your kids. So what will start happening is your little calendar is going to start looking like this kind of a crazy calendar. So again, it's all in pencil and it's all changeable, but you're going to go from something like this, and then by the end of the month you should have something like that. And if you can't get more than 2 or 3 kids on each one of these big pages, then you might have to get a second one of these and put another batch of kids on there. But that is kind of what it's going to wind up looking like at some point at the end of the month. And then another thing is, do not throw these out, okay? Do not throw these out. Fold them and stick them underneath the last page of your calendar, because sometimes when you're going to go to the next month on these, you have to look back to the month before that and see some of the things that you may have forgotten. So do not throw these out. Keep them. They're really good to refer to, especially if you live in a state where you have to actually prove what you did and what your schedules were every day with your kids. This is a good proof of what you did all day long, and every day, and all week, and all month. And then something else, again, just check off all the things that you did actually accomplish that you had planned for that month. And then some of the things that you did not actually get done, which does happen, you can roll over into the next month. So cross off anything you got done, check off anything you got done, and roll over what you didn't get done into the next month. So this was super key. It took me a year to figure out how to make that work. And again, I did it all the wrong ways before I figured out this was the ticket. So beyond your own personal planner and maybe your calendars, even just a wall calendar, something else you want to maybe start doing with your kids is getting some materials for them to start learning how to plan their own day. One little fun thing I used to do is I'd get an actual time card for these kids, so they could do some kind of a little project where they were actually like checking in to a job every day with a time card. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, but it is just another example of how to schedule their time. So time cards are kind of a fun little tool to use. Here's another one that I use with some of my younger kids, and that is just a little, what's called a calendar companion. They can actually, this is a dry erase sheet, and they can actually write in what things need to be filled in. So for example, today is Monday. Yesterday was Sunday. but it just goes all the way down. But great calendar tool for younger kids to learn how to kind of figure out where they're at. I know I always had a lot of questions from my little ones about how, like where we were at, what we were doing, and what day it was. And that really gives them a really nice feeling for how their time is going to be spent. So, and here's another little fun calendar too. That's a good one besides the dry erase. And that's just one of those little magnetic boards. I think this is one of those Melissa and Doug. Yeah, Melissa and Doug little magnetic calendars. But it's super cute, and they can start learning how to do, you know, again, the days of the week and the month, and all kinds of fun little holiday magnets. It even gives you the certain years, you know, that they can put up on their calendar. So it's a really cute little way for them to have a manipulative tool or a calendar for little kids. So there's another fun one for the smaller kids. And then, you know, if you can, like with the older kids, get them kind of like one of your own personal planners. You know, this is my planner that I actually absolutely live by, and if I didn't have things written down, it would never happen. But if you can get, you know, your kids or your boys or anybody just a small version of a daily, weekly, monthly calendar, that's a great way for them to learn how to start managing their time. So that's another thing I recommend for schedules. And then any other kind of little tool that will help them just understand how to manage their time. There is just absolutely no better skill in the world than for them to learn how to do that. So obviously you're their best example, and if you get it right, then they can get it right. So hopefully that gave you a few ideas on how to schedule your day without being too overwhelmed. Again, I hope you learned from the year that I spent doing it many different ways. And just finally coming down to something that worked for me. So yours will probably be different in many ways, but that's the general idea, and that should kind of guide you into how your days are going to be spent. So hopefully you don't have too many questions, but if you do, let me know on my website, Susie Homesteader of the Rockies, and we will see you there. Bye-bye. So let's get started. Subscribe to the Susie Homesteader channel, and we'll see you there. Bye-bye.